Hi everyone, welcome to the podcast. Today I have a special guest, which is Siobhan, and she's from the UK, and she's going to talk to us about how to tell stories on our website and also the power of the voice of women. And it was so good, and I hope that even if you are not interested in copywriting or how can we express ourselves better, it was a great podcast. And let me tell you a little bit about Siobhan. Siobhan is the founder of the Chief Word Witch at This Sister Scribes, where she helps founders learn to weave magic through their copy, capture your own unique voice, and cultivate an audience of raving fans. She combined over a decade of classroom teaching experience with her love of words to support women in business. During the last 6 years, she created word magic with hundreds of women via courses, workshops, one-on-one, and group programs. When she's not copywriting, she's juggling and raising 3 boys as a feminist and training a puppy and being an activist, campaigner, and label parliamentary candidate. She also hosts a podcast, The Sister Speaks, shining a light on women who are raising their voice. She also has a program of leadership called Women Should Be Seen and Heard. Her passion is supporting women to use their voice, tell their stories, and generally F the status quo. Also, when we record this podcast, she was with COVID, so I tried to remove some of the coughing, but eventually you're gonna see some coughing, so just a warning there. Also, I'd like to tell you, if you could share the podcast, if you have any episode that you're listening and you feel excited about and think somebody could benefit, make sure to share it to your friends, and that would help a lot the podcast. And also if you could leave us a review. So I hope you enjoyed the podcast today. I would like to announce the new community for the podcast and how can you support this podcast with Patreon. Now we have a community at Patreon, patreon.com/artisticallyyou-podcast. We have tiers to provide you with many different ways to help the podcast and receive some perks and benefits. Also, you can start just with a tier that costs literally the price of a coffee. It would help a lot with the cost of the podcast, but also to have exclusive content, get-togethers, and all kinds of perks in the future. We have already set up many tiers that you absolutely will enjoy. I would like you to check, and I can't wait to see you there. Again, patreon.com/artisticallyyou-podcast. I'll see you there. Siobhan, thank you so much for coming to the podcast. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. I've got COVID, but I'm good.
Oh, I'm glad it was not so bad for you, despite you being pregnant, right?
Yeah. Yes, thank God.
That's scary.
God, yeah.
So, before we get started here, tell a little bit of people where are you talking from?
Yeah, so I'm a word witch. I help female founders and I help them weave magic through their copy. That's the majority of what I do. So I have courses and workshops and things, but I love helping women basically use their voice, and whether that's in writing or speaking. And a lot of the difficulty we have is we've kind of grown up talking, not being allowed to speak about what we believe in and what we do and all that kind of stuff. So
true.
I'm giving women the kind of confidence to do that on their websites, to do that in their social media.
Yeah.
And so it's all about kind of empowerment. I don't really like that word, but empowerment and confidence rather than just like web copy.
And tell me, where are you located?
Oh yeah, so I am in Devon in the UK, which is I live in a very rural place. There's 4 houses near me. So yeah, I mean,
how's that far from London?
It's about 240 miles from London. So it takes me about 4.5 hours to drive from my home to my mum who lives in.
No, that is far.
Yeah, so it's not. Yeah, it's not too bad. It's just that our roads are very slow.
So when I first discovered your account, I really got caught by the name that you use and the whole presentation that you do about witch of words. Why did you choose that?
So when I first, I haven't been a copywriter for my whole life. I was a teacher before I became a copywriter, and I just sort of always felt a bit uncomfortable with the phrase copywriter, and I just didn't know how to name myself. And about 3.5, 4 years ago, I was working with some brilliant women, and they, the feedback I got was that like the work that I did was magic, and that they felt like it was kind of word witchery, and yeah, from that kind of grew this kind of, everybody, they'd recommend it, but they'd type under, like in a group that we were in, they'd be like, oh, Siobhan's a word witch, she can help you. And from that it kind of developed into, sorry, I'm very handsy today, it kind of developed into this Siobhan's the word witch, and I've
That's
kind
great.
of owned it.
That's great. That's great.
I love it.
It makes total sense though. To bring you here because I've been following your content on Instagram, and I'm so glad I discovered you there. You have, I think it was a live that you were doing. And that I like about people from the UK is that you people are so direct to the point. I don't know, I feel that about you guys. You guys are really direct. And what attracted me on your content is not just, of course, teaching us to write better words, but also your advocacy for women and for women's rights, which we're going to talk a little bit about this later. But I think it's something rare on the round of social media, and it can be scary sometimes, right? But I think in the UK, I think people are more prone to accept this kind of talk than here sometimes in the US. I think we made strides, but we are still, opening about this stuff. So here in the podcast, I believe majority of listeners and viewers are artists or people that, like art. And one of the pet peeve for us artists is our website. It's hard. In Facebook groups that I'm in or communities, it's like, I don't have a website yet. How do I build? What should I do? But the thing is, words are not just for the website, right? The words are for everything. And what interests me about your work is that you talk a lot about being true to yourself in your words. And from that, it makes easier to express yourself with words. So I would like us to start, first of all, for you to say how important it is for people to have a website to express their voice, in our case, as our artists.
Yeah, so I think it's really important for artists to have a website now because, like, there is so much stuff everywhere, like all the time. We're constantly bombarded with information. So to have, to get your message, to get your art out into the world, like you need to have a website because people are looking for new and interesting things all the time. And if you can find some keywords that match up really beautifully with your art, then you can start having new people discover you. And that for me is the purpose of a website. Like, it's great. I've got a big following on Instagram, not big for a small business, and most of my clients come from Instagram, but occasionally I do have people find me through my website, and that is because I've got keywords. So like, when there's people who are kind of woo, or they don't type in "I want a copywriter," they'll type in "word witch," and then I'm one of the few who comes up. So I think a website is key, really, to being found and discovered, and particularly for things like PR. So for getting found by like people writing articles and things like that, or people putting a blog together about a different kind of art genre, or up and coming artists and that kind of thing. Like, having a website that they can link to means that more people will come to you. So yeah, I definitely think it's key, but also expressing yourself. So So part of it is being found, so having a really good clear homepage, like
Right.
yours is really clear, like here's my podcast, here's where you can buy my art, here's where you can do this, like it's really coming on your website. And I think the other part of it is the expressing yourself. So like you have your podcast, there's a blog, like it's where you can kind of put your thoughts and dreams and wishes, and you can really display your values as well, because as small businesses, and artists are small businesses, no matter how they want to say it, like you've got to sell work to live, right? So especially when you've got other responsibilities, I think it's great if you live with your parents and you can do as much art as you want. You don't really have to think about bills or whatever, but the reality for most people is that they have bills to pay. Yeah, I think having somewhere that you can earn money from, but also express yourself, and people want to see small businesses that are aligned with their values. Like people are much more savvy nowadays. They don't want to buy from Amazon. They don't want to buy from TK Maxx. They don't want to buy from trying to think of American shops. But it's that thing nobody wants. So when for example you're looking for art, you don't tend to go to Amazon to look for art. So you'd be like, right, actually, do you know what I want on my sitting room wall? I want like a really big floral piece, or a floral oil, or a floral pastel picture, or whatever it is, or a portrait. And like I would rather buy from somebody who has really mastered their talent and has put tons of effort in, but also their political values align with mine. They they give a percentage of their earning to the local food bank, or whatever it is. I want to know all that stuff.
But that
So
stuff
yeah.
stuff is because you create connection with your words, right? Because
Yeah,
that is
and
important
it
as well.
comes from words. Yeah, because it's storytelling, and those stories stick with us,
Yeah.
and that's where the word of mouth stuff comes in. So, like for example, in fact, you came up in conversation last week when I was talking to my sister, because I was talking about because she's about to have a baby as well, and I was talking to her about running a business and having a child. And I said about you being an artist and having your son, and also all the other complications around that, that you weren't planning for. No one wakes up one morning and is like, hey, I really want to have a kid with extra needs. But as beautiful as it is when it comes to fruition, you never pictured that when you were
Absolutely not.
And I'm the same. Like I didn't sort of picture having two very highly strung young men to live with. So kind of, you can't. I don't know. It's those stories matter. Like if I didn't know that about you, you'd just be another artist.
Right.
But there's a whole other layer to you. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
So I feel like those stories are now. I don't mean like. I always say, like, I don't want you to, air all your dirty laundry on your website.
Yeah.
I want people to, like, just a few things about you that make you stand out from other people, like the passions and stuff.
So I want to honor that point, because this is what I think is most fantastic, that I actually signed up for your course, because I struggle with this, and I'm trying. And I think it's a little bit about an old issue of self-confidence about my accent, right? Because I had before people making fun of my accent or saying racist things about my accent and things like that inputs in your mind that you're not able to write correctly. So one thing that I would like us to really get out of this conversation is, I had the notion before, and I believe many people have this notion, that if you have a website, it has to be this fancy words and catchy. I always say, I have a friend from Washington. I always ask her, look here, what do you think about this phrase that I have on top of my website? Do you get it? Do you, because I feel I cannot write correct, you know? And she's like, well, it looks fine. I can see you are selling this and you are artist, and but always when I listen people like you and your lives and your content, I was like, there's a story. How I can put that instead of being the fancy website, corporate kind of website. It reminds me a little bit of LinkedIn, because if you feel like LinkedIn, you have to write like very corporate
Oh
and blah blah blah.
God, I hate LinkedIn.
Yeah, I would like us to be like, if you could, I don't know if I'm making myself clear, but it's like the difference of how can we start thinking about our words in stories and not that fancy corporate jargon that is out there.
Yeah. So I'm actually running a work. I've just today I was writing notes for a workshop I'm doing. Like paid in a group on Thursday, and it's all about kind of disrupting and being disobedient because there's all these rules with websites that copywriters have used for years and years and years, and basically people are bored of reading them. Like this is and I think people are bored, they are disinterested, they have very little time. They want to know, like, do you like, is your work awesome? Firstly, like, so I mean, if your work's crap, it doesn't matter how good your website is, no one's going to buy your stuff. Like at the end of the day, like you've got to have honed your craft, haven't you? To it's got to be beautiful, it's got to be well presented, it's got to be high quality.
Right.
Otherwise I'm going to buy it anyway. But you don't need an all singing, all dancing website. You don't need to have like pristine copy. And I think the more real, I mean, no
Or
one wants to
fancy
read a website to make,
photographs, or like high pay
yeah,
level
but it doesn't.
photograph.
Yeah, it can be. They can be photos off your phone. Like it doesn't. I think the important part of it is that it comes from the heart. So when you're
Right.
writing your copy, you want a headline that captures the imagination. So something that calls people in and makes them want to read more. So we call that a hook. So you want that to hook them in, and then you want to give them a bit of a. You want to sow the seed about what you're all
I
about.
have so much
So
trouble with
you
hooks.
and I think as artists, it is a really hard thing to do because
Yeah.
it's a luxury. It's a beautiful thing, but it feels like a luxury, and it's not really, because where on earth would we be without art? Like my entire office is full of bits of art, whether that's like a postcard or, but it's because I think it's really difficult for artists to find a hook. So I think you have something about you've got something quite good on your website. My brain's just gone completely blank, but I was looking at it last week.
It's okay.
But it's like
Pregnancy
a
brain.
catchy
Pregnancy brain.
pregnancy and COVID. It's just a disaster. But, but having something that makes people think like, oh, okay, it's not just like I'm an artist, come and look at my art. Basically, is what we need to have. Is something a bit more like jazz hands at the top. And then the other stuff is all about connection. So it's not about you being like, writing your curriculum vitae, or I don't know,
Yeah.
your resume.
CVS. Yeah.
Yes, don't you? You don't want your whole CV on your website.
Right.
You want there to be a bit of a story about how you came to be doing what you're doing. Like,
Yes.
did you have a breakdown and leave your corporate job, or did you have a child and it completely changed your perspective, or did you suddenly like one day wake up? Like it's that
So,
magic.
but so where can we make that connection? The website sprinkling stories. Is it that has to go everywhere, or is it supposed to be just on the about page?
It can be everywhere. So you can use the story on your homepage if you wanted to. It could be a story about, it could be as simple as like once upon a time, there was a girl who left her corporate job and had no idea what she was going to do. And suddenly it came to her in a dream that she was going to be an artist, and she went and bought paints, and it can be that simple.
Yeah, I had to stop working because of I could not pay childcare for my autistic son. I was paying more to childcare than I was making it. So
It's insane, isn't it?
yeah,
We won't go on a political rant, but women are underpaid for what they do anyway, and then the burden of childcare drives me absolutely insane.
yeah.
And that's the same in the US. I think is worse, but the UK is awful. And then you look at places like Finland where they're like, "Hey, childcare's free."
It makes you want to cry.
Yeah, it does. And they have a universal basic income. I was talking to my husband at the weekend, being like, "Hey, should we just move to Finland?"
Yeah, and because I mean,
female-
yeah, and not being repetitive because people know the story, but I went to school again to help my son, but also I started in school to wanted to be a therapist as well to help other mothers and other kids. So I went through all that. I have $60,000 in student debt to do that. Then I went and took all the certifications to be a behavior therapist for kids, and had CPR training, had restraining training, had all these trainings that were all paid, right? And a long time to have all the certifications to be able to be a therapist in schools, and then I said, yes, finally I can work, because I stopped work and then I decided to go to school, and I saw that I couldn't. My husband was paying for me to work, which was frustrating. So I was
Yeah.
I go back to help my son, and I was doing and driving him and doing all the things that I have to do. And I was doing my art anyway on the sides, but I'm like, well, I better, take this forward now if I don't have any other choice, But these stories are, because of this story is where I am here today. I would not be here talking to you today in this podcast if it was not for that story.
And those stories matter, and you are role modeling to other women of children with autism, or you're role modeling to other people who have masses of debt or are struggling in a system where they don't fit. You're role modeling to them that it can be done. And I think it gives us hope when we see somebody doing things through adversity. It gives us a glimmer of like, oh my God, that could be us too. Like, it might take 5 years, but I'm going to do that. And I think that hope is what keeps us all going, frankly, especially in the last 2 years. Seeing other people doing brilliant things, or hearing other women's stories matters, and our stories do matter. Like I rant about this all the time, about women's stories being eradicated from history all the time, and I think it's really powerful that we've got all these tools now, like podcasts and like the social media and the internet, to be able to document our journeys and to show, like, and to leave a legacy, basically. I think there's so much power behind our stories, and you never know who you're inspiring. Like, it could be, a young mum who's got a 2-year-old, has finished college, has no idea what they're going to do next, and then they see, like, you doing this, you've got 60 grand of debt, an autistic son, and you've got a thriving, flourishing business online, doing something you love, and she knows that she doesn't have to go and work in Hooters or whatever. Like, it brings hope. And that's the thing. I kind of feel like by telling my story that I left teaching, which I didn't tell people for ages when I first started out. I left teaching and then stopped talking about teaching because I was so worried about A, offending people who were teachers, B, that I was like, I don't know, I came across as a fraud as a copywriter because I had this, decade of teaching experience. I was so worried about talking about it. I didn't do it for like 2.5 years. And then I was talking to someone, they were like, you do realize it gives you more credit as a new copywriter to tell them that you spent a decade teaching children how to read and write. And I was like, oh yeah. And then they pointed out, like, you have got a degree in creative writing. It's just you didn't use it immediately. And I was like, oh yeah. Like you just, but I hope that because teaching is such a horrible career sometimes, but it's very top down. And I know it's the same in America. Like it's underpaid, undervalued.
Yeah.
I hope that my story of like growing a small business, and it has taken time, it's taken me 6 years to get to where I'm at. But I hope that gives people who are thinking about leaving teaching, like, oh my God, if she can do it, I can too. Like,
Right.
it's just it's a really, yeah. And it's not about like, we didn't start small businesses to inspire people. We did it so we could make some money.
If people
Yeah.
want to also um, start having the stories or be more authentic in in their platform, so we talked about the blog, and then but if they're on social media and they want to create that connection, right, and
Yeah.
tell people more about themselves. So what do you think are the a tip that you would give to get them started to brainstorm this? And because you do have to stop to think about what you want to share, how much is too much to share, right?
Yeah. But I think that the thing is like stories build connections. So it can be, you can use stories and anecdotes to kind of build context around whatever it is you're doing. So for example, if you had a new piece of artwork, like tell the story behind it. Like, you're in the park and you saw something and you wanted
Yeah.
to draw it, but you got interrupted because then you saw this bird, or whatever the story is behind that. But in terms of telling your story, people want to read your story and feel like you are a bit like them. So, and that's what turns like people who are just going to scroll through into like people who then buy your course, or people who go and immediately buy all the birthday cards for the next 6 months from your website. So the kind of things you want to be talking about are like, why are you different? Like, where has this come from? Did you always have a creative spark? Did you go to art school? Did you and I'm specifically thinking about artists now. So did you work with someone amazing who hugely inspired you, or did you one day go to MoMA and think
Yeah.
like, that is what I want to do?
Yeah.
Like,
Kind of artists keep inspiring you. Like I posted on my Instagram that I
yeah.
just went here to the museum and saw Frida Kahlo exhibition, and it just made me. I I now have like 3 books about her, 4 books, because I want to deep dive on Frida Kahlo, because
Yeah.
I want to deep dive more on this women that did art in the past, and in their time they were criticized. And Frida Kahlo, she was a communist, and I saw sketches of her criticizing a lot of countries, especially here, and she was not quiet, right? She decided to put her voice. But
No.
I think that is her connection piece. That is her story. She was very much, a lover of her country. And she had this political side, and she had the art side, and she had the struggles with her health, right? And struggles with
Yeah, she had
love,
chronic illness.
and struggle with her
Yeah.
love, her husband, which they had a very conturbated relationship. They would separate, they would come back, and these fights, and it just fascinated me. I mean, of course, I knew about
Me
Frida,
too.
about you when you go and immerse yourself on that. I wanted to learn more about her, and
Yeah.
I'm now gonna be, on the holidays, like deep diving on her. And it's amazing that we can buy actually her diary. She left a diary, and we can have a copy of her diary. And I think this is, to me, because they say, and I think it's true, people don't buy just, from, they buy also from you, the person, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
How can you communicate with them? So do you think if someone want to get started, should they, these pieces of things, the ideas that you said, they should start like brainstorming on a piece of paper, on a journal, and let the stories and these things come up?
Yeah, absolutely. And I highly recommend doing like morning pages. So if you kind of like don't know where to start, set an intention for the week to get up 15 minutes earlier, and to just, when you wake up, grab your book, like your notebook, and brain dump everything for 15 minutes. Just write for 15 minutes. And sometimes it's utter nonsense and it's just like whining, like, I feel rubbish today. And other times it's like really kind of emotional stuff that comes up that, like, I don't know, something happened the day before that's kind of brought up memories of, like, oh, I'd totally forgotten that I went on this trip when I was a child and, I don't know, saw one of Frida Kahlo's paintings, and I forgot that's what sparked my, like, love of flowers, or, you know, whatever it is. Some of the stuff that comes up is quite powerful. So I would highly recommend doing kind of that. But also, yeah, sitting down and thinking, like, what is your superpower as an artist? Like, what is the thing you bring? Like, is it that you are really passionate about climate change and you want to make it really clear that these things aren't going to be around for very long if we don't look after our planet? Or is it that you want to, you know, life is really hard and you want to bring beauty into people's lives? Like, what is it that you are passionate about and want to get across? So yeah, think and just kind of journal on it. I think that is the most powerful thing. And then obviously you're not going to, you know, take a photo of your journal and shove it up on your website. You're going to pull out the best bits that you think will resonate, and sometimes that's all it takes. And I think we overcomplicate things. We overthink everything, particularly as women. And we, you know, we've constantly had our voices squashed down. So think about, like, what do you love? What would you love reading? Think about websites you've been on that have connected with you. And I'm not saying copy websites. I'm just saying emulate that feeling. Try and capture that feeling that they give you with your own.
What do you like about it?
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, think of the brands that you love. The reason you love them is because they make you feel something. So whether that's like innocent smoothies or Coca-Cola or whatever, it's not just drinks. Other drinks are available. But it's that thing of, how do they make you feel? Do they make you laugh? Is that what you want to inspire in people? Do you want to make people laugh? Do you want to make people feel kind of like melancholy? Or do you want to make people feel like there's hope? Or, you know, what is it you want people to feel? Like, some people want to inspire rage because that is what is going to change the world. And that is totally cool. Like, if that's what you want to do.
I think also we have to be to pay more attention. I think when you start, you know, learning these things, I started noticing how I don't pay attention to things. Like, I don't pay attention to the details. Like, as you said, I don't know if I like Target, which is a nice store here. And I never thought about why do people like Target? So what is Target has that is so different, right? But Target is different. When you are there, you feel different. Their decoration is different. The things that they carry are different. So, but you kind of go absent-minded and don't think. Then when you start learning these things, you start to thinking, oh, I have to actually stop and think about it. Because we don't do a lot of that. We just like boom, 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 boom. And we don't think about that we have to stop and like, Like, sometimes as an artist, when we are in the beginning, we follow this other artist and we thought, her art is so good. I don't want to create like her, but I just would like to know how to do some things like this. But you don't pay attention to know, okay, you don't want to copy her, but what in her art do you like? Do you like the colors? Do you like the scribbles? I don't know. Do you like whatever the person does, right? If it's bright colors, then okay, so what I like is bright colors, so maybe I have to start using bright colors, right? And I think before, we don't really pay attention on these things. They just pass by. What an advice you would give to people that are, listening to this and thinking, okay, but I'm shy and I don't want to talk about myself. I just want people to buy my stuff because I'm shy. I don't want people inside my life.
I think that's something that's important as well, is you don't have to share everything about your life to be valued, to matter, for people to love you. Yeah, there are people in all industries that are different shades of vulnerability. So I think the first part of it is to just, maybe when you're writing your story, it's just like, how did you come across this? That's not sharing anything that you wouldn't talk about, at a dinner party. You're talking to, you've got to remember as well, like, these things are powerful. So it takes a level of being brave, I think, to share your story,
Yep.
but you don't have to share everything. For example, you're not going to write tons and tons of stuff about how hard it is being a parent of an autistic child. Like, you're not going to write about, like, the middle of the night wake ups. You're not going to write about all that kind of, you're not, you'll allude to it maybe, but you're not going to go into masses of detail about how draining it can be, or toilet, how long it took to toilet train, like, or potty train, like
5
all those
years.
things. You're not. Yeah, well, precisely. Like, I know I've worked with a lot of autistic kids. I'm like, I know this is a huge issue, and I've also got 2 sons who also took quite a long time, boys. But it's that thing of, like, you can talk about, did you have a light bulb moment where, like, you were sat at your office desk one day and you just thought, nah, I'm done.
Yeah.
Or was it, you were sat around the dinner table at home and you just thought, there's got to be more to life than this. So that's not sharing your innermost, darkest secrets and your trauma. You're talking about something that just gives people an idea about where you came from. So I think if you're shy, don't go into all the difficult stuff. It could be that a song inspired you, or somebody gave you flowers. Like, it just, a little spark, a little moment that you can talk about or write about. And I always say, write how you speak. So talk it out first. Like, record yourself speaking.
That's a good
as you
idea.
would to a friend. And then write it down, or use, like, one of those dictaphone things, or I think there's lots
I
of
mean, your
different apps you can
iPhone,
use.
with your iPhones, you can record your voice. There's a
Yeah,
voice
exactly.
recorder.
So there's lots of different ways you can do it, but I
That's a
always
good
think,
idea.
like, don't overthink.
Yeah.
Like, if you are shy, sit and have a conversation with a friend, like, even over Zoom or whatever, and just talk it out. Be like, what do you think is special about me? Be a little bit vulnerable, because there is magic in that vulnerability. There's a really great quote from Brene Brown. I'm trying to think what it is about vulnerability, and about how brave it is to share. It's something about like, people who wade into discomfort and vulnerability and tell the truth about their stories are real badasses, or something along those lines. And that is so true. Like,
Yeah.
I think I hate things that are fake, and you kind of, everything's perfect and everything's wonderful and the world is great. Like, it's not. Like, there are lots of things wrong with the world. Like, we live in a patriarchal, white supremacist, capitalist society that is, there's so many people oppressed under the systems, and that's global. That's not, like, limited to the UK or the US. That is everywhere. And I just, we cannot pretend with rosy coloured glasses or rose tinted glasses that everything's okay.
Yeah.
Like, I understand the need to do that sometimes, but you can't, you've got to be vulnerable, and you've got to sit in your discomfort sometimes, I think. And and the part of your, like, the work of artists is telling those stories through your art, but also the words you use alongside that. When you look at something like Guernica by Picasso, for example, it's a really angry, devastating piece.
Yeah.
And I did art at college, and a lot of my work focused on the Iraq War, because that was going on at the time, and how angry I felt that our politicians forced us to go to war over something that
didn't
is
exist.
fake, basically. yeah, and I was very, very angry, but I was 17. Like, what
Wow.
could I do about it? So I bought a piece of work that was massive,
Hmm.
and I was learning about World War I at the time, and there were so many things that were there are lots of kind of similarities between like First World War poetry and the anger that I was feeling at the time. So I kind of did this piece that was like, yeah, probably about 6 foot by 6 foot, and all this wire writing, and so I got my love of words in and all this stuff. But I think if you are passionate about something,
Hmm.
that is going to come across in your work, and it will come across in the words that you use to describe what you do and your
Hmm.
story. um like, you're not gonna, I mean, I very much doubt any artist that you've come across would write like, I went to school, I then went to college, and then I became an artist, and and then I had a great life, and I was a multi-millionaire, and I flew all over the, like, it doesn't, like, it's
Yeah.
not, that's, nobody wants that. Like, that's the something that makes you go, um
And also, like
sorry.
taking on that tangent, there is you are very real on your Instagram, on your platforms about your visions, and
Yeah.
I I'm very attracted to this because I think there are accounts in the US of people that are very well known in the arts and craft industry that they pretend nothing's going on in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And it's okay, it's a choice. I even saw interviews before, they say it's a choice. I have my opinions, but I don't think it's the place to post my opinions there. They can say that. Sometimes I think it's purely fear of losing customers and losing
It is. Yeah.
followers. The bottom line is because of
Yeah.
money. So in a way, I think they are trapped also in the system they think they are against of, right?
Hmm.
Um, and I think women especially, um, we are so much, we have so much fear of judgment. I mean, men,
Yeah.
before here I was having lunch and I was just listening with my husband. There is all these things going on now in the news, so it's just ridiculous how women are. No matter where you are have to listen to this BS. It's just
Yeah.
and even as an artist, I think we are not treated the same as men in art. If you say,
Mm-hmm.
I have people like when I say, "Oh, I'm an artist," oh, it's nice to have a hobby.
No. Yeah. I mean, I get the same as a writer. Like, oh, how's your little business going? I'm
Yeah.
like, I think I probably earn more than you, actually, but okay.
So
But it's that thing of like, yeah, yeah. Sorry, I'm going off on a tangent. But yeah, tell me what you were you gonna
no,
ask me something?
so how do you deal with this judgment? I don't know how in UK, but sometimes the people that are
Yeah.
brave here, they receive a lot of hate DMs and blah blah blah. And how do you feel about that?
So, this is something that you, like you rightly said, like, I stand up for, I kind of am an advocate for women's rights. I talk about politics all the time, but this is relatively new to me. So, in 2018, probably maybe 2017, 2018, um, I became more political on my business Instagram, and therefore on my website and everything. So I started running for politics and running political campaigns in 2017, and I kept my hats very separate, and it became exhausting. And I got trolled really badly in 2019, on my personal Facebook, um, by people looking for, at the time there was like a big kind of witch hunt, ironically, about socialists in the UK who were anti-Semitic,
Oh my
and basically
goodness.
looking for people to then trash and cancel. And obviously, I'm not anti-Semitic. I'm an intersectional, anti-racist feminist. Like, I don't believe in any sort of racism. And there was, obviously they didn't find anything, but they did find that somebody that I followed and somebody who I stood in a campaign with had posted a photograph in 2016 that was pro-Palestine, and therefore I was called anti-Semitic because I had the relationship with this person. I'd run on a campaign with her, and I got trolled quite badly for that, and I got put into like a category of women who were anti-Semitic. If I was a man, I doubt this would have happened.
Yeah.
But it made me think about how separate I was keeping things, and I basically started to think like, I don't care if people hate me for my political beliefs. I do not care that people do not like me for that. That is their problem. And if anything's wrong with the world, it's because not enough people think like me. So, I believe in a better world for everyone, not just the 1% and all the old white dudes. Some old white dudes, Jeremy Corbyn, Bernie, they get my they'll get my stamp of approval. But there's a lot of old white dudes who do not want women in positions of power. They do not want people of colour in positions of power.
Yeah.
And so I thought at that point, I was like, sod it. I am going to start posting. I'm going to share things on my grid. I'm going to share things in my stories that I believe in. That I'm going to share not surveys. I forgot what they're called. My brain's inside. Like petitions and things like that.
And
so
you recently you posted books. If people want to learn more about this, yes.
Yeah, exactly. So like I have tons and tons of political books, and I have been on quite the journey, like developing my socialism, developing my understanding of economy and policy based around business. And I ran for Parliament in 2019, so that's like running for Congress.
That's exciting.
Yeah, but those things matter to me, and I started to realise that actually by sharing what I was doing and the things I'm trying to achieve as a woman in politics, I then started inspiring other people to start talking more and to give them permission, but being more like, oh, Siobhan's gained quite a lot of followers from this. Like, this is okay. I don't have to sit quietly. And there is this fear of upsetting people. Now, if you are on the right side of history and you're not a racist asshole, then, and don't get me wrong, like all white people are racist somehow, like it's systemic, we're unlearning a lot of stuff. But if you are not outwardly an asshole, then I believe that you should be talking about the things that you believe in, whether it's, you volunteer at a food bank, or, at Christmas you spend the time feeding the homeless, or if it's, you're really passionate about women getting decent maternity leave, like those things are going to connect with your people.
Yeah.
And
the right people for you. The right people for you. Yeah.
And that's the thing. Like, why do you care that there are people who do not align with your values following you?
Yeah.
Like, are they going to buy from you? Are they going to share your things? Are they going to promote you? No. They are watching you to see if you say anything bad, or they're watching you because they're jealous, or they're watching you because, let's be honest, like, we don't want them. We don't want those people. We want the people who are going to support us, who we can nurture,
and it's like in my case, right? I am Latina, right? I became a citizen in this country, I don't even remember when, maybe 15 years ago. I don't even remember, a long time ago. And I mean, I can't believe that you see me and you're gonna think I am not a Democrat.
Well,
it's, you'd
be surprised. I think.
It's just look at me, just look how I speak. It's just, and I am an advocate for acceptance of people with special needs, right? I am vegan. I am an advocate for animals' rights to live a compassionate life and not just feed our selfish reasons to eat animals. And amazingly, when I post about veganism is when I lose more people, because people don't like to, and that's fine to me, but it is part of me, right? It is part of me to want to spread the word about the cruelty of the meat industry, right? And the cruelty that it's something that we can do. We don't need to do it. We don't need to do it to survive, to be cruel with animals. So, and people don't like that, and that is fine. But people have different thoughts and different opinions about things, and it is something that is deeply related to my art. I believe all these parts of me make my art and make who I am, right? And make
Yeah.
the colors that I choose or the things that I like to paint, because all this brought things to my soul that bursts into
Yeah.
painting, right? So
Exactly.
I just think if we had more people open about it, and I'm open to any
Yeah.
questions about any of the subjects, but people don't want anymore to ask questions or have a real discussion, you know? So they just
Yeah.
want to, like, I don't want to hear anymore. And
Yeah.
we can have, I mean, my husband is not vegan, for example, but we live cordially here. No, we are not killing each other. It's okay. You want to continue to eat, I'd say to him, you want to continue to eat dead animals, that's fine. I'm here healthy. My son, he's he's even more blessed. He never ate meat in his life. So, and he's a healthy, strong, tall, young child. So it's,
Yeah.
I think sometimes what I try to do is not to fall in that mistake in the system, trying to not be myself. Because I think if you do that, like some people do here, you end up falling to the system, right?
Yeah.
But
You
there
have to
are,
stand for something,
right. But there
or you
are,
stand for nothing.
right. There are lines, right? You said I'm going to start discussing that as well on my feed. For example, I know we have you talked about having a line and all that, and we all have to see our lines, right? So, one thing with my son is that my son, sometimes I post pictures on my stories, but I don't put like his face, or sometimes I put his face but far away, or he's running, because my son is 12. And I know if he was a typical child, he would have opinions about me posting on Instagram, right?
Yeah.
And or TikTok or anything or Facebook. But my son is not verbal enough to tell me, hey, or he doesn't even know Instagram exists, to know that he wants or don't want me to share his life, right? So I have to respect him as an individual as well. So because I don't know that, I try to be, you know, not showing him all the time, and kind of like tell the story about it, but not showing him, because not because I'm afraid, or it's just because I don't have his permission, and I cannot
Yeah.
have his permission because
Absolutely.
of his disability. So, and I think he has the right for me to give that respect to him. If he's not able to verbalize that, I should just not, right away put his life out there. I know there is a lot
Yeah.
of accounts on TikTok that show autistic individuals, and I don't say that I don't agree with them. I think that's fine, but if their individual understands what they're doing and understands this is going, you know, as a mother, I don't feel comfortable if my son is not 100% say to me, I don't want to post my stuff on TikTok or Instagram
Yeah.
if I have that permission. So, but I will continue to be an advocate, but I don't have to splash him everywhere, right?
Yeah.
And I don't have to do things that I don't have permission. So there is these lines that I have to be careful with. And
Yeah.
I think we all have to see where our line is in the
Yeah.
spectrum,
And that
right?
takes practice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think that takes practice because things like, and I've seen this happen with a few kind of influencers
Mm-hmm.
here, where when their children were very little, they used to show their kids all the time.
Yeah, it's
And
a
then
lot.
they have learned
Mm-hmm.
through I don't know whether they've been on a course or they've had a conversation with somebody else, or whether they've just kind of the child has said something or whatever, but now they post pictures of their children but they've got like an emoji on their face, or they post pictures of them from behind, so their
Yeah, and
faces on
sometimes
you, or
the
they don't post
child,
pictures at all.
sometimes the child says, "I don't want." There is a artist here that presents a morning program, Kelly Ripa, and she always, when she posts her daughter, she doesn't put her, she puts her daughter, because she says, "And with the one that doesn't want me to show," because her daughter said, "I don't want you to post my face on on your Instagram," even though her daughter has an Instagram, but she doesn't want
Yeah.
herself on her mother's Instagram.
Yeah, which
Right?
is fair enough. And I
Yeah.
know my oldest son is 13, and we have a similar agreement that I don't post his picture on my Instagram unless it's from like far away, or like it's an old photo. Like he'd rather not, like, so either he doesn't really like having his photo taken anyway, but and he's not on social media. Like he scrolls TikTok, but he doesn't have an account. It's that thing of like, it's about consent, and consent's really important for everything. Consent's important for, like, for example, for artists, it's really important. Like,
Yeah.
if you're going to share something in your stories that someone's created, you need to give them credit and acknowledge them.
Yeah.
That you have to get consent for. So, for example, if I'm going to share, and I went to do it earlier actually, and then realized that it was nearly time to go online to talk to you, and I was like, I need to get permission from you if I want to share your work in my stories or on my grid. Like, have you got like a policy in place? Like, some artists are really strict, like, you can share in your stories with a tag, you cannot share on your grid. You can buy my work here. Like, they kind of are very strict about it. So consent is really important, and those lines of what you want to talk about. I know loads of people who do not talk about their children at all. And what makes me a bit sad about that is that your journey as a mother is important. And I think historically, motherhood has not mattered. Like, it's been poo-poo, motherhood, it's easy. Anyone can pop a child out. And you're like, actual motherhood is hard work, and being a good mum takes learning, a lot of unlearning. Like, there's loads of different things that motherhood is, and you don't know that unless you see it. And
So, Siobhan, just to end our conversation, I think I could be talking with you about this for ages, but
we can do it days.
yeah, I think, like, as a last tip for everyone, if you are afraid, what would you say to people to just get started?
I would say maybe start like you do with your stories. It disappears. So, like, not everyone's going to see it.
Yeah.
You don't have to be like all over your grid or all over your blog, like, I'm a Democrat, or like, I believe in abortion. Like, you don't.
Yeah.
It could be little things that you just sharing and alluding to, like, you went to vote, or like, you went to a food drive at the local hospital, or like, it could just be little things, like little signs that show outside your world. Because that's the thing, is we want to buy from people, like, we don't want to buy from corporate. Like,
Exactly.
do not keep it. The part of you are asking, by asking someone to buy your art, you are asking them to be vulnerable and show you what they enjoy looking at.
And trust.
So, and trust. There's a lot of vulnerability, a lot of trust. So I believe in that exchange, you also have to be a little bit vulnerable.
Yes.
And yes, you're being vulnerable because you are putting your art on display, but also, like, sharing a little bit of, like, how you created it and the person you are matters.
Yes.
For, like, kind of selling purpose, but also like a connection purpose. Like, none of us started this thing to, like, just sell stuff. We wanted to connect people and cultivate those connections and build relationships.
So true.
Yeah, and that's part of why I think stories are really important. And just, little bits in your stories. In your Instagram, or
this is what I do on my stories. I share where I'm on the weekend, and I share sometimes when we go to a specific trail. When I was living in Washington, that my son would love to go, because this trail had a little dog park. So What
Oh,
it means is just a big area that people take their dogs, that the
yeah,
dogs can run. And so it became like a dog park, but it's not official dog park, but all the
yeah,
dog owners go there. And my son would love to go to that trail because he would ask to stop on that spot because he just wanted to run with his iPad and circle, just circle, circle. They like to
really,
spin a lot. So he would circle.
yeah,
Sometimes he would ask my husband, "No, Daddy, come spin." So my husband would spin with him. And I had videos on my stories of them spinning or my son just going wild and laughing his belly out, so happy.
yeah,
And I would put, this is what happiness is simple things. Simple things. And what I love
yeah,
about the journey with my son and what I hope to share in my stories when I do this is my son teaches me every day that to be really happy, we don't need a lot of things, right? If he's in his bed when he arrives
yeah.
sometimes, he's all cozy and he pop up his Toy Story DVD and he asks me a bucket of popcorn and I arrive there, he's with this smile looking at Toy Story and it's like, here's your bucket. And I said, this is life. This is happiness right there. And we don't need a lot,
Yeah, but
right?
that's
We
all we
don't need
all
a lot.
want, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
We don't
So,
need all the stuff, and we don't need all the gadgets, and we don't need all the like cars and stuff. And like
yeah, like
there's more important things
we
in life.
learned, I think I learned with him to look at the details that we are talking about because, my son is not very verbal. So I have to be really observant with him, right? I have to,
Mm,
we now recognize, what he really means, when he's really happy and when he's okay, and when something definitely he doesn't like, he tells you, he can speak, he will not just have conversations with you, but,
yeah,
it makes me pay attention. And I think that's what we need more, pay attention, our
yeah,
surroundings. So,
and that's mindfulness, isn't it? That's
right.
mindfulness,
Yes.
being aware and having that thing. And I've just been thinking like I'm going to write you a message later about like a copy idea I've just had, but yeah, I think that's so important that you make that connection between like the things you're doing outside of your work and how they impact on your kind of
Oh,
process.
100%. Yeah, 100%. And this is for
Yeah,
everybody. Like, if you're listening to
yeah,
this and, what is unique about your children? What is unique about your life? What brings you happiness? Like, for me, um, people on the stories are tired to know. I always dreamed to come back to the sun. I wanted to come back to Florida. I wanted to be surrounded by the sun again. I was tired to live in a gray weather, rainy. I was, I
were you
was,
in
I
the
was
UK?
I was literally in depression. Literally, I take meds now. My anxiety went to the roof. I
Yeah,
live with anxiety. I take prescription meds. This is all part of me, right? But I'm in a journey to move on, and my art is there to help. Yeah. So, you know, and that was awesome that we could have this conversation because I so would like to talk to you about this today. And I will leave out there that I would like to come back so we could go even deeper on
yes,
this because
please.
I think we could talk about all kinds of stuff, especially about motherhood and how that influences our
Yeah,
copy, our life. I think sometimes women don't want to be like, oh, everything about women is motherhood. Well, but for us that have children, it is about that sometimes because it's such a monumental, it makes such a huge change in everything, right? Um,
yeah. It's all consuming, isn't it? You can't get away from it. Like even when you go away for like a retreat or like you go, like, I don't know, to Target for the day, like
yeah.
you can't get away from the fact your brain is going like, what are they doing? What do I need? Do I need to pick up
And
toothpaste
I
for
have
them?
to arrive
Where
before
are they?
4 so that I'm there before the bus comes. my
Exactly.
life
You're
is
kind of like
all
your brain.
my life is all surrounded about bus times.
Yeah, don't. We live in the middle of nowhere, so there are no buses. So everything is like I'll have to leave half an hour to drive to the school to pick up.
Yeah, everything's about driving. Yeah. And if you're out there and you think, well, that's not going to be for me. Hey, I took 8 years to have my son. So I know how it is to think about all that and, not having a child. So we all have special things in our life that we need to pay attention. So, Siobhan, so I'm putting here the website. This is the sisterscribes.com. So tell people before we go, what are you doing? Like, what do you have going on right now? How people can use your services.
So at the moment, I've got quite a lot going on. I am pregnant, so I'm very aware that I will be finishing work in February, kind of mid to late February, for probably only a couple of weeks because we don't get maternity pay as self-employed people. But which is very different because I had my other children while I was teaching. So yeah, I've got my course, which Jana is doing, and there's some other lovely women doing that as well. And we have a little Facebook group.
Tell people about your course, just real quick. Just tell people about what the course is.
It's called Words Which Work, with witch in the middle because I love a pun. And it's kind of a comprehensive but very intuitive course. So it's not like a copywriting
It's been very different for me. It's been very different. You ask me to write all this stuff and I'm like,
But it's more coming from within.
Yeah.
It's not about a template. It's not.
But that was surprising for me.
Yeah.
Anyway, I like it.
I think it does surprise people because that's, for me, it's about doing things differently. It's not about fitting in and conforming with everybody else. It's about doing things your way, what works for you, and bringing your magic to the table. So yeah, I've got my course, which is kind of a standalone course, but you're never on your own. You've got like the Facebook group that you join when you sign up, and kind of you can ask questions in there. And I normally do live Q&As, although I've been so ill, it's kind of got a bit wrong. But anyway, normally it's fine.
No, but it's I have to say that you are very helpful there. Anything that we ask, you're always there helping us. So it's appreciated.
Yeah. And that's, for me, like the course is really great, but the support element is really important.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
Yeah, because hands up who's bought a course and never actually done it, because you have no support. So you buy a course, it sits on your laptop.
300 courses by now. Yeah, and also I think the group and the questions that you have help us to, okay, I'm learning this, but how do I take this on my niche? Because that's my most difficulty in courses that I was like, okay, how do I implement that for me? And I end up not using anything that I paid for, right? Because you don't have that help.
Exactly. Yeah, so that's where I can bring my magic, and it's a way of working with me at a much lower price than it would be to work with me one-to-one. But you still, because it's quite a unique course, there's not as many people in the group as, say, for example, on like Ashlyn Wright's or Marie Forleo's stuff. So you've got like my expertise in a kind of little group. So that's one way of working with me. I do VIP days, so people can work with me over like a full day working on their copy. So those are called magical VIP days because they are magical. We can do so much. If you're in the US, I can't send you a cream tea, but I will send you lots of positive vibes, and we'll have lunch together or dinner together because the timing. And it's kind of, those are really special.
And do you have an hour, right? You have also an hour if the person wants to
I have hours. Yeah, so I have witching hours because I thought that was a play on when you've got children, they have a special time in the day. Actually, dogs do this as well, and cats, where there's like witching hour, isn't there? Where they go nuts for like an hour.
That's true. For my son, it's 7 p.m. I say to my husband, he's a little,
Yeah, they just go crazy. There's no
reason crazy.
Behind it. They just go crazy. Like dogs, they like circle the room. Like
that's
cats
true.
Go a bit,
my dog used to do that. Yeah.
Just go wild. So I used to call them power hours, but everyone calls their power hours now. So I have a witching hour. And so during that hour, we will work on something specific. So normally it's like brainstorming new ideas, or it's working on a sales page, or it's working on an about page or a home page. It's kind of very specific for that hour. And we kind of do it together, and it's really lovely. And then I do follow-up support afterwards as well. So yeah, there's all of those things. And because of my expertise in leadership stuff as well, and running for Parliament and all that kind of stuff, I'm doing a leadership program as well in January. So I don't like to sit still, as you can probably tell, even when I got COVID. So I'm like, yeah, that starts in January. So I'm seeking out like 4 or 5.
You're very brave.
Yeah, well, it's really important to me that women step up as leaders and no, and that's not just like in the office or in politics, that is in their daily lives, like being an advocate for yourself, being an advocate for your children, being an advocate for women, being an advocate for women of colour, like whatever that is, whatever you're passionate about, like I've got the skills to help you kind of hone your campaign or hone your leadership skills so that you can then step up and raise your voice. So yeah, that's kind of what's going on in January. But I'm having 2 weeks off over Christmas and I can't wait. Sending my laptop in to be fixed. Yeah, and we're going away in the camper van. So I don't know what you
oh my gosh.
An RV kind of thing. It's not, but obviously it's cold and wet and raining, so it's not that exciting. It's not Florida.
I'll visit England one day in the summer. Okay.
Yeah, make sure it's like July. August is rubbish.
Like when I went to Europe, I always go in the summer because I can't. I lived the 16 years in the cold. I'm done.
Yeah.
Yeah. But everybody, I would highly recommend you follow Siobhan and her IG. You're gonna learn a lot, but you're also gonna have, books and many things you can. I already put on my Kindle a lot of the books you recommend. It's funny, I didn't know they have a different cover because you posted something. I was like, I can't find this, and then it's a different cover over here. So I didn't know they have this. They have these things of different cover. So I would highly encourage, because she gives some very nice nuggets, and also you have conversations with other people on Instagram as well, doing some lives, right?
Oh yeah, I have a podcast as well, but it's called This Sister Speaks.
Oh really?
And it's kind of I
didn't know that.
Yeah, but I had a podcast in 2018, 2019, and then I had a bit of a meltdown over the trolling that I discussed earlier, and I stopped it. I had to just take a break. It's on my website. You can listen to those conversations, but I changed the way I'm doing it. So I now have those conversations on Instagram that I can then download and put onto the podcast at a later date, when I'm not running myself ragged, or I can pay someone else to do it when I'm earning loads of money one day.
I will put on the notes. So the podcast calls This Sister Speaks?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's on,
I'll find on your...
kind of the theme. This sister is my theme.
I'll find later to put. I think it's awesome, because I think, it's great for you to do a podcast, because this is something we need to discuss more and be out there. So I'm very excited that you're putting this on the podcast as well, because, sometimes podcast listeners, they are different groups sometimes. They are not on IG, and I think just one note before we go is that I forgot to say is that the reason why I started this podcast, by the way, is so I could share a little bit more of my story, but also I could hear other people's stories, because I'm trying here with the podcast to call artists that are not well known, or, artists of color, or, minority groups, and talk about things that usually on the regular art podcast we don't talk about. And also about anxiety or stress and things like that. So kind of a mishmash of things, but it's the things that I like, and I think it's what I like to say, and it's all involved on my art work. So I think for you out there, for me was a podcast. Find how the way you want to express. If you want to express yourself, telling stories, writing, go to your blog. Use IG, and there is some blogs that are so personal out there and so good, and just get inspired. And if you have any question, contact Siobhan at her IG. She'll be for sure glad to talk to you and direct you to the right, how she can help you better. But Siobhan, thank you so much. I appreciate you coming here. It was so good. Many
Thank
pieces
you for
of
having me.
many pieces of wisdom here you dropped for us, and I for sure would like you to come again.
Sorry.
Poor thing. And I thank you for coming sick.
Apologies.
It's
I just
okay.
can't catch
It's
my
okay.
breath.
So much. I appreciate it.
No, Janet, it was lovely to talk to you. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. I appreciate you listening to the podcast all the way here to the end. And I would like to thank you so much. And to help us spread the word about the podcast, you can share on Instagram and tag me. I would love to share as well. And take a screenshot and tell me what you're doing while you're listening to the podcast. Or leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. We really appreciate if you could do that. It really helps spread the word about the podcast. I will talk to you on the next episode.